Hi, good morning. My name is Vince. I'm the CEO of Preston Academy. It's really a pity that I didn't get to meet you guys at the SCMP Learning Festival earlier this month, but I'm excited to be here. So thanks to SCMP for organizing this session. I'm really looking forward to meeting you all in March when we hopefully finally get a chance to share in person and exchange ideas and really learn from you guys also what your kids love playing. But for now, I would love to use this opportunity to just share a little bit what we have prepared for the information session at the SCMP Learning Festival. Now, I just want to give a really quick disclaimer. Originally, at the beginning of the session, we were going to play a game. Of course, in this format, being that we're not live together, it's probably a little bit harder for us to play the game. So I'm going to use that as a little teaser for you guys to come back in March, and we'll be able to play a couple of games together. And there, we'll go through the examples of the games that we played and just share with you guys how we constructed that. But for now, I'm here to talk about designing powerful learning experiences through play and games. So hopefully, some of these concepts and ideas you'll be able to use with your kids at home, because we're all stuck at home, but there's actually quite a lot of things we can do with games and play as learning experiences. So a really quick introduction on Preston Academy. We're a learning center that was just founded around a year ago. So we've basically lived online and in blended learning pretty much since we've been born. We started off as a consultancy, so we still do a lot of corporate gamification work, but Preston Academy is our B2C learning offering. And we design all our learning experiences through playing games. They're project-based, they're inquiry-based, they're multidisciplinary, and we really take a lot of ideas and inspiration from learning through play and gamification and game-based learning, all those things, and design very fun curriculum and programs for students aged 4 to 18. Now, I like to talk about games in education because a lot of times parents and students, they're always saying like, oh, we love having fun, right? We love playing. But the discussion is always around how can play and having fun and playing games be productive. So first of all, I wanted to share with you how we look at it. So when we look at games in education, we look at two particular types. The first type is educational games. Now, why are these called educational games? Well, they are games that are focused on education. So the education piece comes first. This is an example called Math Blaster. I grew up playing Math Blaster. Maybe some of you guys in the audience did as well. Math Blaster is quite a classic game, and you can see that on screen right away, you know exactly what it's about, right? Even from the title, it's called Math Blaster. So there's something about math, there's something about blasting, and just from the way it looks, it's actually a game that's set in space. So what the players are doing is they are going through space and they're assembling parts for their spaceship and going on sort of small adventures while solving math problems. So essentially, the math problems are what it takes the player to get to the next stage, to complete the next quest, and so on and so forth. Now, why do we call this an educational game? Again, educational games are experiences where the education comes first. There are a couple of signs that something is an educational game. Number one, it's in the title, so Math Blaster. Number two, you can basically see immediately that it's an educational title. Just by looking at the screen, you see a lot of math stuff happening. And number three, at the core of these educational games, what actually happens is, and this is also why parents and teachers are more comfortable with these games, is because at the core of it, there is assessments that can be generated, right? At the end of the game, we have worksheets that we can print out. We have scores that we can print out. We sort of like to call it homework that is more colorful. Not as a slight to the genre, it's just how we sort of differentiate it, right? So when there is assessment that is very clear, and the game itself is built for those educational purposes, we call those educational games. So that's the first part of games in the educational sphere. The second, and I hope this graphic, brings back some memories for some of you guys. This is SimCity 3000. That was a game that I grew up on. I probably spent, hundreds, if not thousands of hours playing this. One of the classic SimCity titles, one of the classic management simulation titles. Now, if you guys have not played this, it is basically what it looks like. It is a simulation game, right? And a simulation game where our job is to be the mayor and to build the city as large and as thriving and as prosperous as possible. Now, what are we supposed to do? Know anything about urban planning? So this is a blank slate for us to start on. So there are a lot of things that we have to learn about as we go. So we need to know how to build roads. We need to know how to zone residential, commercial, industrial zones. We need to balance utilities, water, power, waste, police coverage, fire coverage, healthcare, education, all of those things. So this we call SimCity and other similar titles, games that educate. And why do we call them games that educate? It's because it's the game that comes first. The education does come second, but players are playing SimCity because it's fun. Now, you can maybe guess at this point that at Preston Academy, we are subscribers of this genre. So we want to design games that educate. We want to design experiences that are fun and educational as well. And why I use SimCity? Well, the best example I can give is I don't know a single person who has played SimCity to learn about urban planning, but I've met a lot of architects and urban planners who are now in this profession because their first interest was sparked by playing SimCity. So this is an immersive, compelling, hands-on, interactive environment that is built for the players to have fun in. And throughout the process, you actually kind of learn a lot of different urban planning, strategy, resource management, all of those concepts just as part of playing the game. So that's why it's a game that educates. So for us at Preston Academy, there's a lot of talk about gamification. We are pioneering a concept called Gamification 2.0, where we're building fun first, and then we're building everything else around that. So for us, the most important thing, especially for our students or learners, is that they're having fun. That's why we create all of our curriculums around playing, around games. So they're coming because they have fun. And in our experience, it's actually worked out quite well. We have multiple, actually the vast majority of our students right now do repeat sort of course after course because they have fun. Now, of course, that is not neglecting the educational side. As parents, we understand that we want these experiences to be both fun and productive. So we want to meet in the middle so that for the students, for the kids, it is a lot of fun. But on the other side, for the teachers and for the parents, it's also very productive as well. So I'm going to share a little bit about how we constructed these experiences from an agency standpoint. Before I talk about agency, I just want to share these two screens. I'm going to start talking a little bit about role-playing games right now, because that is where the concept of agency really shines through. Some of you guys might have heard of a classic tabletop role-playing game called Dungeons and Dragons. It is a format, and it was a game system that was created, more than 50 years ago. So this predates all of the digital games that are out there. And it's a classic storytelling game, right? So in the picture, you can see there is a dungeon master who is tasked with creating the narrative and guiding players along their story. And the mechanics that underpin this experience is actually dice. That's actually our logo. This is a D20, so it's a 20-sided dice. And so that is actually the classic mechanic that underpins all of role-playing games, or most of role-playing games, at least in the Dungeons and Dragons genre. But it is a pure exercise in storytelling and creativity. it is also a pure example of player agency. And what that means is that players feel that they are in control of their destiny, right? Now, you can see on the right side, that's actually a screen from a game called Dragon Age. Dragon Age and other similar computer role-playing games, a lot of what they're built on is actually the same system as Dungeons and Dragons. So behind the hood, behind all of the fancy graphics and all those things, what's actually happening when you're fighting a monster in the game, when you're picking up treasure, when you're interacting with another character in the game, the computer is actually rolling dice. So this is all sort of, just a little bit of trivia for the parents here who might be steeped in this genre as well. But it's also quite a lot of fun. And we also would like to use this as an example of agency, right? So agency in the purest concept is the capacity condition or states of acting or exerting power. Or, as I said just now, it's how much control someone has over their destiny, right? So in the case of players within role-playing games, there's three things really. The player has control over their character's decision. So in a lot of these games, whether it's tabletop variety or the computer variety, you get to control where you're going. You get to control what you want to do, who you want to talk to, who you want to fight, what equipment you want to put on, all of those things. Now, the decisions that you make on behalf of your character also have consequences within the game world. And what that means is, all of those decisions you make need to feel material. They need to both have positive consequences that are rewarding you for your decision, your strategy, whatever you've come up with, or they will need to have a negative impact if you want to fight a high-level boss without being at that level yet, or you want to accomplish something, you want to get a piece of treasure or accomplish a quest before having met all of the sort of prerequisites, right? These decisions need to have consequences. The third thing is that the player needs to have enough information to anticipate what those consequences might be before making them. So all of these three within the player agency sort of discussion, you can see that they all flow into each other, right? I need to know that I can control what my character is doing. I need to know that whatever I end up choosing for my character, there is going to be something that comes out of it that will influence how the game plays out in the end, or how I can complete the game. And I need to know that in order for me to do all of those things, I can have the information I need to make those decisions on behalf of the character. So obviously this is in a game realm, right? We're talking about player agency here. Why is this a concept that we like to hold on to? Well, if you work in education, you will probably have heard the term student agency. Student agency gives students a voice and often a choice in how they learn. Very often when we're creating curriculum, the most important thing we want to do is to ensure that our learners, our students, feel invested in the outcome. We want them to feel engaged. We want them to want to stay with us the entire time. We want them to make decisions for themselves and are motivated to do so. We want them to want to seek out information in order to complete the test before them. Strangely, that sounds a lot like role-playing games, which is actually, not that surprising considering, that saying, games are life. We sort of like to subscribe to that philosophy. So, being that games are mere reflections or fantasies about how basically humans, make decisions in life, naturally student agency and player agency are very, very similar concepts. And so we're taking a lot of these lessons we're learning from games to create the same type of compelling, interactive, and hands-on experiences for students and for learners as well. And this is probably something for us, if we want to create learning experiences at home, we want to create incentive for our kids to learn and to take charge of their learning. These are concepts that we want to also replicate and take reference and take inspiration from as well. So there are a lot of lessons from games. It's just how do we apply them to creating our own learning experiences. So just as an example, I'm going to share 3 strategies and perspectives in terms of how we create our fun first experiences. And hopefully this is also useful for you guys during this work from home period, for you to think about how you can adapt some of the, your favorite games or your kids' either favorite games or favorite subjects and topics into their own learning experiences too. Now again, disclaimer, all of these games in March, when we meet for our in-person expo, during the info session, I will actually play some of them with you. So I'm going to preempt that and sort of, look behind the curtains for now. And if you want to get a sort of full experience, please, come to our session in March. So 3 strategies perspectives. The first thing is called repurposing a game mechanic. Now, a game mechanic is basically one type of system that underpins how a game is designed. This is an example called choose your own adventure. And, if we're the same generation parents out there, we probably grew up reading choose your own adventure books, right? These are the books where, you go to page 1 and it's like, hey, you've arrived to your playground, and it's, there's something wrong. On the left side, you see a slide that has smoke emanating from it. On the right side, you see that there are footsteps leading into a tent, the circus tent, right? Which side do you choose? Right? I choose to go to the right side. So it says there, if you choose to go towards the circus tent, flip to page 48. So I choose to go there, flip to page 48, and page 48 says, you have arrived at the circus tent, something like that, right? That is a very classic genre, very classic mechanic that is actually pretty easy for us to repurpose too. Here, I am showing 2 screens from an example that we did together with a school for a middle school science program. And this is about clean water. So the whole story is that, we are a droplet of water, right? Now, there are different scenarios. So you can start in Reservoir de Shenzhen, you can start in Victoria Harbor, where your goal is to try and find a path where you can end up being a clean water droplet that is drinkable by the families of Hong Kong. So from a construction standpoint, obviously, there is a little bit of thinking that we have to do. We need to think about the entire story, the entire adventure, so to speak. We need to be able to sort of create sort of like a flow chart and plot out the different paths. But once that is done, it becomes a really easy and really intuitive format for our kids, our students to follow, because it's basically a story in this format. And something that is also quite fun and an additional challenge might be to do something like this together with their kids. So what is their favorite subject? Can they plot out a logical map? Can they create their own choose your own adventure story for that subject? And maybe they can play with their friends or their families. Now, as you can see, this is a slide format. It's quite easy to do this over PowerPoint or Google Slides. Just as long as, in the click here side, it's just a hyperlink to another slide. So we're creating digital versions of choose your own adventure stories that, your kids will be able to share with their friends, play online, and share with their family as well. So that's number 1, repurposing a game mechanic. The second thing is repurposing a platform, right? I talked a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons just now, and from the photo you saw just now, it was a picture of, people playing around a table with a physical dungeon master. This is a platform called Roll20, and basically what it is, it's a virtual tabletop that allows you to play Dungeons and Dragons online. So here, this is one of our programs that we've run. It's a storytelling program using Dungeons and Dragons. So students are designing their own characters, they're going on their own journeys. You can see on the right side, the dice rolling, all of those things are actually fully built in on the platform. We're using Zoom as the sort of video chat option. And on the left side, that's where all of the what would actually happen in a physical tabletop is replicated on a virtual tabletop, right? So you have game masters who can pre-create the maps and load them up there. Why are there separate sections that are black? It's the concept called fog of war. So if you have not ventured into that room yet, you don't see what's inside the room. And there's also like different things like in what turns do the players go, and the instructor is there, and all of those things, right? Now, Roll20 is not designed to be an educational platform, but it works so well as an educational platform. Why? Because it's designed to be fun first. It has all of those components and all of those features that are required when we are playing Dungeons and Dragons for fun. And so with all of these mechanics, with the visual elements, with the graphic element where you can preload all of those components and assets, with the dice rolling, with all of those character sheets and all of those statistics based, whatever you need to play a physical game of Dungeons and Dragons, all of that is here and all of that is replicated online. So when you have a powerful platform that is designed for people to have fun, it's just about finding those features and turning them into educational experiences. Dungeons and Dragons actually works so well in an online format because all we're changing is we're replicating the same thing we're doing in a physical setting just through digital means. Everything else is the same. We're just talking to our friends. The students are talking to their friends and playing with their friends over a webcam. Everything else is the same. And so there are a lot of platforms out there like Roll20, but that are about creating your own trivia questions. So there are a lot of things like that that are out there. So if there are platforms that you've seen, Jackbox is a great one, where it's you can host a lot of fun activities through these platforms. There is definitely potential and opportunity to create and support them over into educational experiences for our kids. So that's number two, repurposing a platform. The third thing, what we love to do as well, is repurposing a game outright. So this is a program, a creative writing program that we run called King of Hong Kong. And what we've done is actually we've repurposed a board game called King of Tokyo to facilitate this. Now, you might have played King of Tokyo. It's a fun game. For those who have not played, it's a very non-educational game about monster invasion in Hong Kong, in Tokyo. And so you start off with like Godzilla-type monsters that you can create. Basically, you're trying to get the most points by either destroying the city of Tokyo or by fighting off the other monsters. Now, there is not a single ounce of educational elements in this game, which makes it the perfect candidate for us to be repurposed into an educational experience. So what have we done? We took the Tokyo setting, localized it to Hong Kong. We added something called landmark cards to further localize that. So every time the monsters are going inside of Hong Kong, they pick up a landmark card. On the wall, there is a map of Hong Kong where they are tracking real time the trails of their monsters. So my monster Godzilla has, my first port of call was IFC, and then it's Stanley Market. So all of the monsters have their tracks mapped out CSI style on a map. Now the important thing is that these kids, these students, are not playing with preset monsters. Their first task before they even get to play the game is to create their own monsters and to create their own bios and to create their own monster experts. Because during the game and in the middle of the game and after the game, there's going to be elements of role play. So the kids are going to take a break, they're going to interview each other. Monster expert, this monster came to Hong Kong like 200 years ago. Where do you think, based on our studies, they will go next after Stanley Market? So there's a lot of make-believe, there's a lot of role playing, there's a lot of creativity that's being used. But the key skill that we're trying to teach here, as you can probably guess from the right side, is actually journalism, right? So from the interviews that they're doing, they're learning how to capture key talking points. They're learning how to craft lead paragraphs, right? Breaking news headlines, write sort of bios of characters. They're creating their own event calendars as well. All of those things, because the end deliverable is that they're creating their own newspaper based on the monsters, the characters, and the story that they've created together. So from a fun experience standpoint, that hopefully hits all the check marks. You're creating your own characters, you're creating their own monsters, you're playing a game. If they work fast, they get to play multiple times. But from a productivity standpoint, they also have something to show for it, right? They have the articles that are edited, polished together as part of the program, and they have the finished product of the newspaper that comes to them as evidence of their work. So there are loads of games that are out there that are rife for repurposing, whether it's something about the theme, whether it's something about the characters, whether it's something about the game mechanic. Maybe there are games that you enjoy playing at home as well, right? So can we create writing prompts? Can we create problem-solving opportunities for kids to work out as part of the game, before the game, after the game, as a way for them to feel invested in what actually happens in the game, right? You could also have post-game discussions and debriefs about strategy points and all of those things. That makes it very educational after or before they have fun. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I want to share. We're a young startup with big dreams here at Preston Academy. A little bit of a sort of preview. We have different programs across all of these subjects. We're actively working on creating much more. Right now, we run a lot of holiday programs, self-contained programs, after school and weekend programs, either at our own center or with schools. We are working on creating more in-school enrichments and supporting curriculum as well. Already having a lot of discussions with curriculum bodies, working with curriculum standards, all of those things. We want to ultimately end up creating lengthy, in-depth, extensive, and intensive programs that are academically beneficial for students, right? But at the very core, they're fun. So I hope to see you guys in person in March, and I hope to see your kids at our programs. But end with these. These are the programs that we've got coming up during this period, actually, Christmas and Q1 of 2021. So there's climate science, there's game design, there's screenwriting, there's creative writing, and food and nutrition, and all of those things. So for more information, check out our website, www.pressstartacademy.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Instagram at Press Academy. And, well, I'd like to end on this note. Albert Einstein's quote, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." We want to be able to take our kids' intelligence to the next level. And how I look forward to hearing from you guys. This is my contact details, and see you soon. Thanks.